Welcome to this webinar with the subject line of Aesir Context Marketing. Today I'm going to take you through a brief introduction of what Aesir is and some of the marvelous features of Aesir Context Marketing. And we will start from the top, which is the dashboard. Here we're logged into a website we're currently developing for a European project, the ITS Observatory, and we will use that as the case example here. So for starters, we will talk about the dashboard here. And the dashboard is sort of your one-stop to get an overview of what's ongoing with your website. How many visitors do you have? How many new visitors, what's the average visitors for the period. You have the referrals, which is the sources of incoming visitors, where they're coming from. Then we also have conversions. In this case, this is an information website that has not any conversion tracking or monitoring set up, so it will say 0 here. Had it been an e-commerce site, it would be super relevant to also get these numbers here and trace them also. Finally, the fourth widget we have is A/B split testing. So if you're A/B split testing items, categories, or call to action modules, then you can actually get them highlighted here too and how they're performing. It's of course possible to alter the timetables and the periods you are looking at from the dashboard too. And as we move a little further down, we have some extended widgets coming out here that shows in high detail what's going on. Same goes for referrals, where people are coming from. And of course, we have these two, which are empty now. Moving further down, we have some top items. And this is the content items in Aesir, which performs the best, meaning they have the highest amounts of monthly visitors or in the period, or that you're converting the best per month or in total period. So again, if you set up conversion tracking, and it doesn't have to be just e-commerce, it could also be that you're collecting lead generation, or that you're utilizing Aesir to measure engagement levels of your visitors, then you could put a monetary value on some of that, so you can actually see which of your content items is performing the best. And the clear goal with that is, of course, that if you can see what the work you've done that performs the best, then when you do new content items tomorrow or in the future, you will be able to learn from your own experiences and the results you're creating. One of the biggest missing elements of content marketing today is actually the ability to monetize the value you're creating in the organization or the company where you work with content marketing. So having measurements and specific numbers, even out to monetize values of the work you're doing, can be quite crucial in terms of getting your C-level management to understand that running a website is not a cost, it's actually an income base, and the more focused and prioritized the work efforts is, the higher the outcomes will be. So the more you put in, the more you get out of it. Finally, in the bottom, we list up the latest visitors, and some of them where we can trace them exactly. We have images of their websites, and we also have an Aesir extended business information web service, which is an add-on subscription we offer to clients. And if we had that on, we would get even more business information from the business-to-business visitors. Now, we'll get more into all of these aspects during the next 45 to 50 minutes, but that's sort of where we start with the dashboard. Now, to talk about Aesir is also to talk about different categories of features. We have a workflow base, a content base, a member and organization base, a marketing base, and then we have the setup base. Beyond that, we have the system relevant features, which includes the notifications, the web event types, etc. But to sort of understand what Aesir is, then we have to understand that Aesir is a content engine that has been created to be recreated, because the specifications and requirements for running a website today is not the same as it is when you're running a website in 1 week or in 1 month or maybe in 3 months, or maybe next year. So the ability to be able to, in multiple dimensions, work on the hierarchy and structure through classifications and through data specifications, and actually create the different types of content and the different fields and groups and relations there's between all of this, and to modify and alter them on the fly, is a very important aspect of Aesir. So when we talk about a base setup of an Aesir deployment, then we start by defining the content types. Now the content types is the individual types of content you have. In this case, it would be deployed ideas, challenges, solutions, products and services, news. But it could be cars, it could be horses, it could be reports, it could be file types, it could be whatever you want it to be. So once you have an idea of the different types of content your website needs to show to the public or internally, wherever you're using it, then you can dig in a little deeper and you can start to define the different fields. Now, as an example, let's say that we wanted to have a blog layout. So if we posted a new blog post or a new news item or an article, then that article or that blog or that news item would actually consist of a layout, and inside that layout you would have X amount of fields. So let's say we had a heading, we had an introductory text, we might have a introductory image or video, then we would maybe have some paragraphs, and we would have some extended information, maybe some specifications, or depending on which sort of type it is, the data specification of the actual layout would vary. So what we can see in here in the fields is that here we identify and create the individual fields. In this case, we have one for a link, one for a headline. We have a quote here, and we have many different options here, images, etc. Now, a field, something like a title or even a quote, can actually be reused by multiple different types. So you don't have to create the same field time and again for every type that uses it or utilizes it in the layout it uses. Instead, you can create a field like this and reapply it to all the types that's relevant. Now, when you create a field, you also get a field code, and the field code will make it possible to insert this specific code here, the field code, into the actual template that defines the layout that goes out to the website from the front end. That also means that if you're utilizing the multi-channel feature of Aesir, you're not just posting to the website, but also, say, to LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, then you can define in those layouts which fields you're going to be using when you also post your content out to other channels. Each of the fields are different types here, so it could be an editor none, it could be an editor visvic, it could be a text field, URL, organization, contact person, gallery, text, video, etc. There's many different types, and if we try to click new field, then we can decide, well, this is for deployed ITS. So once we do that, we can actually go in and look at all the different types of fields we can create. All of these types will add specific functionality, specific behavioral logics to that field which we've just created. So if we want to have a file upload, then we can do it here. A multiple file upload, we can do it here. An image, we could do it here. If we want to show Google Map based on what people input, we can do it from here. If we want to make a field that relates to other items, but from a different type of content, let's say that this is articles and we want to relate it over to another type called horses. So we write an article about riding a horse and then want to relate it to another type with the individual horses. Then we could create a field like that here. And once we do that, it will apply the specific logics that is available for this field. Now, if we wanted to do it with images instead, we change it to an image, and then we get concrete and specific configurable options out for that sort of field type. Once a field is set up, you can then save it, of course, and then you have the full list of fields here. But to work with fields, it also helps a lot if you're grouping them, because it's easier for people, instead of looking at 100 fields in a large specification, then people could be looking at 5 or 6 groups, for instance. So we also have a group level where you're able to go in and define the field groups. Each of these field groups will then in here be placeholders for a relation for the individual fields. So we'll get into that a little later. But at the end of the day, then what happens is when we go into the template level, which is where our layouts are defined, then we have a lot of different templates. We see we have category detail and it's view templates. We also have a module template or field template. In this case, if we want to look at an item detail, we go down into this. I'll just go to one of the next pages and let's say we will take, yeah, maybe we should just go one more page in here and then find deployed ITS detail, which was the example we used from before for the field. Then we see we have an item detail view. So if we open that one, then in here we have the base information. Is it a default template? Yes, no. Which type is it? What's the type, etc. And then we have the actual template that is defining the layout is right here. So this is where the magic happens. So here we can template the actual layout and it will look on the web page. Now, had this been a layout that sends some of the field data when you create a new item out to Facebook or LinkedIn, then it would be an individual layout for that. So what happens is if we go in and create a new field, then we will actually get the fields out here. So in this case, we have the base item details, then we have the fields. And the fields is all the individual fields that has been created for the type that is called deployed ITS. So if we made a new field before that was called an image, for instance, then that field code we would see would get in here and would be one of these. So now if we want to insert one of them in here, we could actually just put in our cursor here, then we could drag it in there, click it in, and then it goes in here, and this would be the actual field which we just created before. So we don't have to develop from a development perspective and to support all of the individual fields. Fields is something you create and then you work it into the template, and as you do that, then you can constantly modify very easily the entire website like that. So I'll just close down the templates again, but there's very many different types of templates here. And then just we've been through the content types, we've been through the fields, field groups, and templates. And just before we continue here, I would like to show what it means in reality. So if we go into items, this is the actual items of the ITS Observatory. Then we can extend the filters here and we can go and select, for instance, the type deployed ITS, which we've been using as the example so far. So now it only shows deployed ITS. So let's say we will open this kilometer charging project Belgium. We see it belongs to public transport category. We can see the author, etc. Now we'll just open and edit it here from the back end of Aesir Contextual Marketing. And as we do that, the first thing we see is the required fields. This is the absolute minimum you need to fill out. This is something that is defined in the fields we just looked at. So depending on whether the fields are said to be required, recommended, or not, and if not, then they will come out in the normal field groups, which we just saw before. Then we have the ability to make it simple to start, then to extend it, and then we can go into the individual groups here of fields. And it means that instead of spending 2 hours inside a Visvik editor in your normal CMS, where you have to design all of the layout every single time, then this is based on predefined layouts where you enter text, you drag and drop images or videos or whatever it is. And as you do that, in all these different groups you're now defining, then you will automatically get the same result out every time you do it, because we're uniforming the layouting process here. So on average, if it takes 2 hours to construct and design and lay out a complex content item in a Visvik editor, what you see is what you get editor as there's default in all the CMSs today. Then when utilizing Aesir Contextual Marketing and the predefined layout, you can do it up to 6 to 8 times faster, which is a tremendous efficiency bonus in terms of working with content marketing. Now, once you have all the basics in place and fill out the fields you wish to, then you can save it, of course. But there's some general information, which also includes the default templates. You can have multiple templates for the same type, and you could swap between them. And then one template might use 40 fields, the other might only use 25 fields, if that was the case. It can be in multiple categories, of course. Aesir is unique in the way that it not only supports many-to-one relations or one-to-many relations. It also supports many-to-many relations. So you can do it in many different ways. We move forward into the publishing options, then you can of course control stuff like if it's features, what the status is, when should it start to be published, or when should it end, who's the author, created date, etc. Then we have location information, and location information actually a place where you can put in physical locations. So let's say you wanted it to show up on a Google map, or you wanted people to be able to navigate on all your horses, as an example, based on where they were in your region. Then you can actually add a location level to it also. The location level is powered by Google Maps, so when you start typing an address, it will make sure it's an actual address. Or if you start to type a location, as we have down here under the setup too, the locations is actually powered by Google Maps, so you make sure that multiple different administrators or editors cannot enter or misspell a location name, because they will be verified with Google Maps as an engine. We also have the SEO tab, which means that you can go and say, I'd like to replace the automatic SEO that happens and do my own custom page title, headings, descriptions, etc. One of the very important elements of SEO, which is not used very frequent in today's market, is actually the canonical URL. So let's say we had 100 pages that was about horses. Then instead of having, say, Google index and pick its own primary page that it would index as the first result from our page, then we can decide by going to the other pages that is about horses, and we could input the CEF URL for the one we think is the most important. And by doing that, we actually transfer a lot of the value in the search engines from the sub pages into the main page we want to do that in. Then we have the channels. Right here, they're not set up, but we do actually support both Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We also have a Slack support and Twitter support. On top of that, we're adding in newsletter channels individually for people too. So once you create an item, you can actually cross-post it to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Slack, and newsletters. And it's possible to integrate to other systems too. If we want to deliver it to, say, a master data system, or we want to deliver it for catalog production or whatever it is, we can extend and integrate to a lot of other systems and increase the amount of channels that is supported in individual deployment. Then we have the call to action modules, and the call to action module is something we'll get into in a bit down here. But here you can actually see which call to action modules is used by this individual item. So you can always access all of the relevant information for this item right here. If we move on to the visit flows, then we can see the actual visitors who have visited this item. So when we look at an item, which could be a content item we have created and we're using for content marketing, we can actually see the real visitors who's visited our item, and that gives us a customer insight that is super relevant. We can actually also open up the individual visitor and look at how they got into this item and where they went afterwards. So we have the full insight and business intelligence of behavioral data from all the visitors and users of our website. That means we're able to do things a lot smarter, because with that informational base and foundation, we're now able to do changes to the website based on a data-driven process, not on a story-driven approach or by guesstimating, but on actual hardcore data. And we can use that for a lot of other things, but we'll get more into that. A little neat thing is that in most of the views in the C, you have this little column option. So if this is not enough information for you, you want more complexity, we can add page views and duration too here, device and browser. And then when we click apply, then we change the way we look at a view like this instantly. And you can, of course, do that in all the major views we have in the administration. So you can decide if you have a more simplified experience as an administrator with less columns, or if you have a more extended way of looking at data at once. Finally, we have the ACL part in terms of permissions. And here we can go in and individualize things. So if we create content that is only supposed to be seen by specific access levels, like organization contributors, employees, owners, or others, then we can decide from in here too if that's the case. We also have full version support, of course. Now I'll just close it down a bit, and then Beyond the items here, we of course naturally have the category levels here, where we can have multiple category and category relations. Something that is quite unique about Aesir Contextual Marketing is that all of the fields which we created can actually also be applied to categories. In this case, we don't have any fields on it. But if we did, then we would be able to extend what a category is. And as you can see here, already here, we have multiple, a category can belong to an organization. A category can, of course, have parent levels. It can have related categories, have an image. It can also have descriptions, but beyond that, we can actually extend the category with multiple new fields. We also, of course, have the SEO optimizations for the category levels, with publishing options. We can see the visit flows from here too. This one hadn't been visited, but if people had gone to this category, we can see the actual visitors here, and we can, of course, control the access levels to this specific category too. I'll just close it down again. And then we get into the call to action modules. And the reason why these three menu items is grouped under content is because this is the three regular content item elements which a normal or average web editor would work with, would actually be these three menu items. They might not work with anything else in their everyday work to start with. So call to action modules is a very important aspect of Aesir Contextual Marketing, because it is here where we're able to differentiate what we do when we propose actions to visitors. So let's say that we have some people that visit one of our items, and if they are from Copenhagen, we would like to show a call to action module with the phone number and the face and name of one of the people who works in Copenhagen that they can call to get help. But if people are visiting from London, then we'd actually like to show someone from the London office and put their face up, because it's more relevant and more meaningful for people visiting from London to see a call to action module with a person that is closer to themselves and in their market than it is to see someone in Copenhagen, or to even just see a generic call to action where they click one place. So what we want to do is we want to differentiate the call to action modules to get them as meaningful, as relevant for the visitor or the user, because that means we will have a lot more actions. People will be more prone to actually click them and do something. So when we talk about conversion optimization and optimizing the amount of visitors you have, and then instead of living or accepting only to have a conversion rate of maybe 1% or 1.5% or 2%, then by utilizing elements like call to action modules and differentiating both your categories, items, and call to action modules, you can actually greatly increase the outcomes, the conversion rates of what you get and do on your website. A neat trick is that once you work with this, you can do new, you can new from existing, then it clones one of those. But if you just go down to the setup part here and then go into the module types, then we have some module types supported here. But if we click new, then it will actually look at your Joomla installation below Aesir, and it will offer all the installed modules here. So if we wanted to add a maxi menu CK one, then we can actually just pick it and click save. And as we do that, now we have a new module type in Aesir. So we take any random Joomla module, and there's around 2,500 modules on the Joomla extension directory. Once it's installed in Joomla, we can actually go in and add it to Aesir, and then it will expand into a call to action module with intelligent logics. So let's try and follow that and open up our custom module here. Then we have a classic view for our module, except that we also have conversion values and currencies and elements like that. We have publishing options, which is also in any module in Joomla 2. We have the content box for a default custom HTML module. We have some options too, just like the normal one, but then suddenly this tab comes up, display options. And what's that? Well, the display options actually gives you the power to go in and decide if this module is going to be shown to everyone, only people from specific IPs or IP ranges, countries, regions, cities, zip codes, or internet providers. We can also match specific domain names, host names, referrals, visit patterns, or devices. I'll get more into this, but let's say that we really want to match anyone coming from, let's say, United Kingdom, that visited us from facebook.com, but only if they were on a mobile phone. So people from England or United Kingdoms that visit this website from Facebook on a mobile phone, we want to show them a specific call to action module where we do an advertisement for our Facebook page in England. So if we do this based on these rules, then the call to action module will be super relevant for people in England that are coming from Facebook on a mobile phone, if that's what we want to target. And then it will convert 10, 20 times better than having a general Facebook ad that applies to everyone visiting from throughout the world to the same page. So if we then set up 10 different call to action modules, one for each of the countries we are in, to the specific ad that targets exactly them. So we will go in here and say, hey, friend, join us on our UK Facebook page. And then we put in a Facebook image and a call to action or something like that. But if we do that for each of the 10 markets we're in, then suddenly we will see an extreme effect in terms of converting people to follow us on Facebook. So this is a simplified example, but it's a good example to show you how giving the right information or telling the right story to the right people in the right way is something that adds to the meaningfulness for the visitors when they come to our website. And at the end of the day, if the market today is based on that we don't convert 98 or 99% of all the visitors on our websites or web shops, then what is really important is that we get a lot better at converting these people. What if we could convert 10% instead of 1%? I mean, that just means that every time 100 people visits our websites, then we actually have engagements from 10 of them instead of only one, but we still lose 90. But that little step alone would tenfold the turnover, revenue, or output we get from our website. So there's a huge revolution in transforming your business or your organization into being better at getting into utilizing the features and the possibilities there is of something like Aesir Contextual Marketing. Now we'll move a little further and I'll get back to some things. We'll go into advanced options. This is module dependent. Menu assignment is the same. Permissions is also here, of course. But the display options is really where the magic happens. And you can, as I said, take any Joomla module, and there's around 2,500 on them on the Joomla extension directory. Once it's installed in Joomla, you go down to setup and you can instantly add them into your Aesir Contextual Marketing support, and then all your modules will get this intelligent display option levels. So I'll just close it up here. Then we'll just jump a little down to and continue in terms of our visit flows, visit patterns, and elements like that into the marketing aspects. First off, we have the A/B split test. The A/B split test means that we can set up split testing between any item, category, or call to action module. So instead of just setting up 10 call to action modules, one for England, one for Denmark, one for US, etc., then we can actually test all of them. So we can put up a face, or we can put up a coffee cup and write book a coffee meeting, or get John to call you, or get Sandy to write to you, whatever. So we can test, and instantly we will start to get results so we can measure it. So we create a new A/B split test, and we then say, well, this gives me call to action modules. Then we can actually select the modules. Well, the custom module and the left module, I like to test them out. It's my test number 1. And then I can set up a goal type. Well, I would actually like the conversion. So I want to measure the first 500 conversions. And then I just click save. I also have some publishing options, of course, so I can time base it, etc. But I click save here. Once I do that, then it will automatically start to do A/B split testing between my modules. Now I have 2 here. There could be 7 too, if that's what we wanted. If I didn't want it to be a specific A/B split test for a specific goal like this, I could actually set it to none. And then if I set it to none, then it's just a permanent one, so it will constantly change between them. But what happens is once this is set up and starts to get states, then we like to get the numbers out here so we can see exactly how they're performing, and we're able to intelligently modify and adjust our website to increase conversions and get more out of our website. If we go into the visit patterns, then this is behavioral patterns of specific visits. I will get back to that. and I'll do that through the visit flows. We'll go into the visit flows, and this is our dashboard that tells us who's visiting our website and why they're doing that. In this case, of course, with a website in development, we're not measuring engagement levels yet. But what we do is we install small intelligent listeners that will listen to specific behavior. Let's say we wanted a listener, so when you scroll below the fold, then we wanted to know that. Because when you create layouts and when you create content, it's important to know if you do long landing pages or you do short pages. And let's say we do a small listener that looks for if people go below the fold, which is below the visible part of the screen when you go into a page. We start measuring that, and we suddenly realize that 75% of our users or visitors does not scroll below the fold. Then maybe we should change our layout so we get more information above the fold, and we really focus on doing shorter content elements, but maybe more content elements. So we have more content that is not so deep. That could be a very important information to get. Another example would be if this was a web shop, and let's say we went into furniture and into a couch, and then we clicked on a variant with a light oak material. Well, having an engagement level like light oak material is actually also, in terms of e-commerce, a material choice. And if you have a material choice in the behavior of a visitor, then that is a primary parameter, because if we then change all our call to action modules to actually show or propose people to buy other products of light oak, then that will have a big effect in terms of the way we communicate with these users. If people are looking for furniture in light oak material, then they will not be interested in anything else, because something like material choice is that important for a potential buyer. So what we then can do is we can actually see we had 5 page views right here. I'll just look at it. And now we have the base information. We can see earlier visits too. In this case, we had 2. And here we'll say this guest visited this page. Let's try and go back. And then we'll see if we can find this one, AAU. That's the university in Aalborg in Denmark, although the IP address says they're from a different city, but that's due to it being a public educational net. We're just opening up this visitor. And then you can see what happens here is that the user actually logs in. And once the user logs in, we actually get the actual information from that user. Now, what we do with the event listens and the web event types we have down here is that we actually translate this level. So at a certain point, we check the earlier visits here too, but at a certain point, we will actually get information. So we, instead of writing this guest visited this page, then we can write this guest visited the category X and Y, and this guest opened the item this and this. This guest filled out this form. This guest requested a white paper. This guest signed up for a newsletter. This guest looked at the furniture couch. This guest looked at the variant light oak. So we do this on some of our client sites, including the web shop ones already now. As you can see here, there's quite a lot of actions from this guest in this process there. But once the site is finished, actually one of them here, Nils Aarholm visited the item VMS on Rover Road. So this is actually the title of the item he then looked at here for 3 minutes and 35 seconds. We have some base data here. Now, if you're utilizing Aesir Business Intelligence web service, which will extend information here, then instead of having this, we would actually have the name of the university, the image of their website, all of the specific information they have, including which sectors they're in, the social media links, etc., etc., etc. So that's an add-on we have for all Aesir clients. So we'll just look here on the big picture here, but let's try and open one of these. Let's say this one from Athens. We'll open up, and then we'll say, okay, so they went into this article. Then they opened the main category. They went into this page, or let's use the example with the light oak furniture. And then say, well, okay, we actually went into the front page, then we went into couches, then we went into the light oak furniture, and we clicked that variant. That is 3 very important steps for us. So I want to create a new visit pattern. So go and say, well, 3 important steps, and then I save it. What happens now is that I can actually go up to my call to action module, and I can open up my call to action module where I tell people that it's very important that they look at light oak products. Then I can go into the display options and I can include my 3 important steps visit pattern. And now I have a rule base where I can decide that I only want to show information about light oak products. So when I do this and I click save, then I make sure that now I have a way of differentiating all of my content, including my call to action modules, through the actual visitor flows, because I utilize those to create visit patterns that then become meaningful rule sets where I can adjust, adapt, and alter and modify the way that the individual user will experience the website or the web shop or whatever it is. So visit flows and visit patterns is an immensely important part of Aesir Contextual Marketing. Let's go into referrals, which is the last item on our marketing part. And referral shows you where people are coming from. As this is a website in development, it's sort of limited for now. But having an idea that you have so and so many visitors directly from Facebook is quite important. And that's also one of the rule logics you have. You can limit to where people come from. So let's say that I wanted to create a rule for a call to action module for a big client I've been chasing for a long time. Let's say this client was actually Maersk.com, which is the biggest, one of the biggest companies in Denmark. Or let's say it was Lego.com or whatever. Well, if anyone from Maersk.com visits us, and of course all larger business-to-business organizations and companies are sitting behind their own domain name, behind their own firewalls, etc. So what happens when I set this up, then I could go back into my content and I could actually say, hey, Maersk, we want you as a client. I could put in an image of myself and a big sign with their logo or whatever. And because I have this rule, and then I could put it at the top of the homepage. And because I have this rule, then every time someone from Maersk would visit our website, they would go, holy crap, what just happened? Why are they sitting with a Maersk logo and telling us they want us as clients? And it's just an example, of course, but having the ability to actually do something like this for your existing customers or for customers you're trying to reach or any other target or segment is so important. Now, there's some interesting aspect here also when we go down to the notification system. The notification system is sort of an extending of the business intelligence and marketing elements. So when we go down to notifications, we're actually able to set up a rule. And the rule is something we can use to do lead generation. And then we can send lead generations directly out to email, for instance. So let's say we do email, then we select the trigger. We'd like this to be a visit match. And then I'll put in the recipient, my email at redweb.dk. I'll write a subject, Maersk visited our website. And then I'll put in a domain. So in this case, I'll put in Maersk.com. So now I set up a rule. So every time anyone from Maersk.com visits our website, then I will get an email. If Maersk is one of our most important clients and I set up a rule like this, then I get an email every time they visit us. And why is that important? Well, every time a client is considering to expand their engagement or find another supplier and actually leave you as a client, one of the things they will do is visit your website. They will do more research or they will consider things before they leave. So this happens very, very often. It's a normal behavioral pattern we see. So for us to know that Maersk, which is one of our important clients, visits our website is super important. So we would set up something like this. Then we would load in the data example here, and this is the actual data that then creates the email to me, where it says if the visitor address, this and this GeoIP and this user, etc., etc. And then I put in a title on it too, visitor on your website, and then I actually just click save. And now whenever someone from Maersk.com visits this website, then I will get an email that gives me the information. I can click the link and see where they're from in the world. I will get their behavioral patterns and all of that into everything I need here. So I'm able to use this as business intelligence in my organization to make sure that we don't lose them as a client, but it maybe extend the engagement we have with them. So this can be rebuilt, of course, to some message documentation too. What's very important and to notice, and also a little dangerous, is that if you say retrospective, then it will actually go through all the data we've collected so far in the Aesir Contextual Marketing Engine, and it will send out an email for all of these entities. So sometimes we have clients who need to learn with a lot of these new things. So what they really highlight from the start is to get Aesir installed, to get it to collect data, and then to add the right listeners, so it enriches the information we collect, so we get even closer to the end users and it changes in behavior. And then maybe 6 months later, then we start doing stuff like this. And it might not be an email handler. It could be a CRM integration, a customer relation management integration. And consider it was a CRM integration, then we do it retroactively. Then Aesir will actually populate and enrich the content relation management system with all behaviors of the individual identified customers that have been set up through notification rules from the last 6 months. The business intelligence importance of having a data foundation and data collection methodology and integrations like this for any organization that wants to mean something in a digital world is unparalleled. It's something you need to do now, not tomorrow. So that was notifications. I've talked a few times about web event types, and the web event types is actually the individual listeners that we use to listen to behavior and then convert it into something meaningful within the visit flows and the individual patterns. So if we look here, we have Aesir action, visit, conversion. These are more generic ones. But then we actually also have some custom ones that are integrated to our e-commerce platform, RedShop. So here we can see when people have clicked on a product attribute selection. So if they go into a couch and look at that light oak variant, then we will know that. If they add it to cart, then we will know that. If they check out, we will know that. And if they buy, then we will know that, because that's a purchase action. And this will actually affect conversion. This will affect conversion. The others are actions. We can also measure people download white papers or whatever. We could also say that when people go down below the fold, that's an action. And then we can quantify the value of the individual visitors through the event type system, which is also abstract and can be extended meaningfully. So we have our cron part down here under the system part, and this actually controls what happens at certain times during the day. So here it does a lot of different actions and perform stuff. It could also be that there was automatic integrations or other aspects here. We have a general configuration, not that it's so much, but it took us over to it here. We'll just close it again and go back. Now, we've covered the system part, the setup part, the marketing part, the content part, and the overview part. The last part of the overview is actually the alerts. The alerts is if you did not set the notifications for email or an integration to your CRM system, something like that, but just to alert, then the alerts would actually come in here inside the platform. If you went out to the dashboard and there was an active alert, you would also be told out here, so you could deal with it the instant you logged into the system. Now, we're missing two areas. The first area is the workflow engine. The workflow engine is a new feature in the Aesir Contextual Marketing. Here you can define a scheme for the workflow, and then you can go into the workflows, and here you can actually set up the individual workflows you will see from the schemes. There's a strong relation between workflows, the items, the organizations and members, and then the different content states we have too. So when we go into the content states, in this place we have archive, published, trashed, unpublished, created. Let's say we create a new content state that is called ready for translation or pending translation or translated or pending approval from editor or whatever it is. Then we can create the content states. Yeah, we can build it in together with the workflow schemes and the workflows. We can relate it through the different roles that you have in organizations, and then we can create a more fine-grained workflow system around what it means to run and create content on a website like this. This is hugely important for large organizations, but it could also be for intranets or in any case where you have an approval chain process where someone needs to approve the work of someone else, then this is the foundational blocks you need for that. Now, the last thing we're going to go into is the organization and member system. Organizations is, of course, the individual organizations. Each organization has relation to members, and there's an organizational owner. If we open up an organization, then we will actually go in and we can see it here. We can add in an image, extended data, we can tag it up. We have also templates and all of that for organizations. We can define which available roles there is to the organization. So far, we have 3 roles set up for it. We have a description. We can also control custom field elements, which is in here. And this will actually decide how organizations are presented from the front end if you go in and look at them. There can be a location on an organization. In this case, it's in Aalborg, Denmark. We're publishing options, and of course, we have the permission layer in here too. So if we just close down the organization here, that's sort of the overview of organizations. Then we can go into the roles. So this was the 3 roles we saw: the organization contributor, organization employee, and registered member. Beyond that, we have the 4th role. The 4th role is the organization owner, but the organization owner is a hard-coded role entity because there has to be an owner of an organization. But let's say we want to add a translator here, or an approver or something. We call it approver. And then we can say it's an organizational role, and we can tie it into a specific user group. So if we created a new user group called organization approver, then we could relate it to that one here. And then what happens is when we create it, it would instantly be accessible for the entire organization system. So when we then combine the ACL system, the access control layers, again, with the organizational levels and the role levels, then when a member, a specific user, this is all the users, when they have a specific role, in this case, we would take me, I'm an organization contributor of the organization Red Web. We just open up this one. Then we can see it right here, and I'm also a confirmed member. This is sort of the basic information for me as a member role. And I'm confirmed. So there's also a process that if I were to apply to join an organization from the front end, then the organization owner would actually be able to approve me as a member. But it's also configurable, so it could be automatic. But in this case, it could also be by requirement that we needed it to be approved. But this is sort of the last element of Aesir Context Marketing, the organizations and member system. Beyond that, right now we're developing Aesir Digital Asset Management, and we're also deploying Aesir as a product information management system to a few clients so far. And it's really, really successful because one of the downsides of having, say, a product information management system, or PIM system, is that PIM systems are in reality not very flexible and dynamic. Well, they were maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago as how you looked on the world. But Aesir is an engine that is built to be rebuilt, that is more flexible, that is more intuitive and easier than anything else so far on the market. So there really is a lot of important power under the hood of Aesir to also be a product information management system. So I'll just quickly end up here by going to the front page of the actual website we're developing here, the ITS Observatory. As I said, it's still work in progress, but what we have here is we have some of those items we saw before. If we go into the deployed ITS, then it will only list those 6. Then if I open up one, it will show this one. I will just go to the page. And then when it opens up, then the different fields it outputs out here is based on what was entered into the fields we saw before. We also saw the groups we had before: the what, the where, the when, the how, the why, the results. These are parts of the data specification for deployed ITS for this specific project. Your project might not have these field groups. It might not have these types. It might have different types. But every website consists of different types and categories and classification, and of different field specifications. On some websites you have to lay out and style all of this individually and manually and spend hours on it. Other places, like with Aesir Context Marketing, you can do it simple and intuitively, and then it automatically gets out here where front-enders can style it and set it up so it also looks good. When you do stuff like this, you have cross-silo relations. So if you have, in this case, we have domains, pre-trip information. If we click it and follow it, then it will transcend all the regular silos, the classifications of types and categories, and actually link us together with all the other content here that has the same theme or subject. We can also use this to create filtering. So if we go into something like what is where, then we decide to use the location-based information to create an overview. And as we do that with the Google Map here, then we have the individual items down here, deployed ITS, the challenges, events, news, etc. As we saw from the types in the backend before, then they come out here. And because we have fields that is ITS domains, geographical context, research, commercial, challenges, and benefits, and country. These fields here is a part of the specifications for the different types. Then we can actually also utilize them as filters. So filters is not just something you can do in a business-to-business e-commerce site or something like that. You can actually do it for normal content or for files. It could be cars, it could be horses, it could be blog items, it could be whatever you define as your content type. We also have paginations. We have alphabetic splitting in here. We can sort by alphabetic or newest. We also have multiple different templates, like the grid example and the list example. If we go to the list, then we have a smaller list view here where you can see more per page. We go back to the grid again. Let's say we wanted to have one that was very visual, so we create a third layout type that is the images with just the title. Then we could do it very visual too, and then the visitors would be able to differentiate the way they select how to view the website. So if it is very visually browsing visitors, then they can do that. If it's more technical minded people, then they could go in a different approach. So it's quite powerful and flexible to be able to do this. And let's say we click to travel information. Well, then it only shows us the relevant information here. So some very, very interesting and also tiered ones down here, so we can go in and you can see we still have a few hits here. So extremely powerful to work with, and it's very, very simple to change, because we want to add another ITS domain. We can actually just go in and add it to the field type in the backend, and then we'll get out here too. And that's pretty damn powerful. Now, I just want to end the presentation here because time is almost up. Going into my organizations, and this is the actual member and organization view. So I was a member of the Red Web organization, and here you can see we have one item, we have 5 members, and I can edit the organization. So let's say I look at the members. Then I can look at our 5 members in this organization. Because I have the level I have, I can actually go in, I'm a super administrator here, so I can go in and edit it and change the status. I can actually add new members too. I can also go back again to my organizations, and then I can go into the items, open up the items, and then you see, well, we have one item, a test news of the type news, categories, etc. And we can see it's Tien who created this item. Hey, I want to create a new item. Okay then, new. And then as a super administrator, I get all the types out. But if I was an organization contributor, I would not see category 1, 2, 3. I would not see FAQ, organizations, content, or members. I would only see the ones here with photorealistic images on them. And then I would click something like deployed ITS. And then it actually utilizes all the field groups we had before, the required field, recommended field logics, and puts it out in a more intuitive way for us. So now we have a very simple way of getting started, a very intuitive way of creating content from the front end, which anyone can do. So I fill out the basics, and then I click save, and that's the minimum that is needed. I can extend then into recommended fields, and then I can go through the actual individual groups down here, and I can fill out and enter text. I can drag and drop images. I can cross off technology readiness level, which they have in their specification here, etc. And then when I'm done, I just click save, and it will automatically lay out all of it and then put it into the website. So it's extremely flexible, very easy to work with, and it's built to be rebuilt. So it will also work for you tomorrow, and in 3 months, and in 6 months, and in 12 months. So that's pretty much it. That was the really, really, really short version, only 55 minutes of intensive Aesir Contextual Marketing walkthrough. So that's it for me for today, and see you next time.